Hello and welcome to Dark Philosophy. This show is going to be a long and winded conversation that you're going to love. It's actually probably not going to be long winded because we're all pretty short brained. I mean, small brained. I don't know I'm off to a great start.
It's the size
Anyway,
of a pebble.
it is. It really is. But welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and everyone in between, as usual. And joining me tonight is my co host, Jeremy, my brother,
Hello.
Germ404. And
Greetings.
of course, our esteemed guest and guinea pig of the evening for the debut episode, Mr. Grant Gregory, the Thunder from Down Under. What's up, bro?
I'm super happy to be here. I've always wanted to be a guinea pig. I tried out for so many medical experiments, but they said no, it's too dangerous. They can't be mixing
Mm,
these genes with anything. So, doing it on a more philosophical level, yeah,
all
quite
right.
pumped.
Heck yeah. Well, I'm happy to oblige scientific experiment on your brain. What's up? Ha. All right. And now, of course, we go to the reason why we're here and the reason we do these things, the people in the chat and the viewers at home, of course. So, first off, I have to highlight this one from No Green Rocks because he's like, this was at, what was that, 6:20 p.m. And he's all like, oh, damn, I'm here early. It's like, yeah, a little bit, bro. A little bit. But hail Superman if he wasn't scared of green rocks or no green rocks. Vince Womack, it's always wonderful to see you. There's a Sporking news podcast. These bald guys just follow me around.
Shit, what's going
Wow.
on, Sporking? That's awesome.
And then we've got Omega Star Productions. Hail, sir. Make sure you guys are, after you're done watching this, you go check out the replay of Talking with Talks a Lot featuring Omega Star Productions, and then go check out the one featuring Grant Gregory, and then go check out the one featuring Germ 404. It'll be great.
And then
And then,
after
of
that,
course,
check out all the other ones.
yeah, I have a playlist now, so go check it out. It's called Talking
Ooh,
with Talks a
you're
Lot.
getting fancy.
And there's a Mr. Grant Gregory in the chat as well. That's
Don't like the
fantastic.
look of him.
Well, he is kind of shady. So, the way this show is going to work for those of you who don't know, which is pretty much everyone, I'm going to present three topics that we are going to choose from. And then we are going to have a discussion, a sharing of concepts and understandings regarding said topic. And the topic will be chosen by Mr. Grant Gregory. So, let's begin, shall we? Our three topics for tonight. Life on other planets, concepts of wealth, and fear of death. Now, whatever topic Grant chooses, we will talk about for the remaining time that we have after I let him say hello to everyone and pitch his channel,
Hello to everyone. This is my channel.
Mr. Grant Gregory.
Geez, you couldn't give me two. There's two of those there that I'm just like. There's one I can go into a lot of detail with. But the other two fascinate me more. Dude, I want to go fear of death. I think.
Fear of death?
Yeah.
Good choice, good choice. And now for the fun thing that I created for that. Where did you go?
The human race is a species plagued by fear. But of all the fears that exist in the world, the most persistent is death. But is it justified?
So that's the premise of my question on the fear of death. Is it a justified or rational fear?
It's such a. It's. I mean, I love the idea because it's a quick and simple yes or no answer, but it's just got so many different layers to it. Like for me personally, the idea of death is much more comforting than the idea of a non-death. Um, the idea that you could potentially live forever, I find that a million times more frightening than the idea of dying. And for most people, I feel the fear comes from the not so much the not knowing. It's the afterlife. Well, does it exist? What is it? Is there divine retribution? Is there punishment? You know, Do you go to
Mhm.
see a Reed's Valhalla, whatever you believe in? Um, for me, I think the big I know I am fearful of death. Um, I'm fearful of what my death does to others, to what others miss out on, and yeah, what life would be like without me. Whether it's gets better for people or worse. That's the weird juxtaposition.
Before we move on, hail lasso of truth.
Should have made a poll. No, I
Yes.
agree. I agree with you know, it really is kind of a yes and no for me. It's I agree with the fact that I'm really fearful of for the people that I'm leaving behind, like my son, you know. I imagine it'd be the hardest for those people that are left behind. I mean,
It always
just
is.
take our father for example. He's gone,
Hmm.
he doesn't care anymore. Like I mean as far as we know.
Yeah.
But and it was really hard on all of us, and that's I think for a lot of people the hardest thing about it is what is going to happen to my friends, my family, my loved ones, things like that.
Yeah. And those are very common themes when it comes to people who are afraid of dying or afraid of the idea of death and moving on beyond it is they're afraid of what might come afterwards, which in my mind stems from a lot of unresolved regret. And then there's other times where they're afraid of for the people that they left behind and they don't want to die because they're afraid of what's going to happen after their influence is gone because you don't know who's going to be influencing, say, your children, or if your wife is going to have the support that she needs, or et cetera, et cetera. This is a very common thing as well. And my my take on the fear of death is driven a lot by Marcus Aurelius. And he said that whether it be through providence or atoms, we are all connected, and to the universe we shall return. So it's a matter of if you leave this world and you return, your base elements just break down and return back to the universe, then what is the fear of leaving behind this very stressful and trying life? And then if it's divinity, if you've lived your life in an upright manner that you feel that you are a good person, then what do you have to be afraid of on cast moving through to the other side? And so for me, it's more of a deeply rooted attachment issue, if you will, is what causes the fear of death in a lot of people.
And yeah, I guess it all stems from like the theological sort of side of things is also a big part of it. Like if you feel like you've had a righteous life or anything like that, then the fear isn't. It's death is just merely simply a transportation to wherever it is, and um, you know, many different beliefs have a heaven. Not every like Judaism doesn't have a hell, quote unquote straight hell, where Christianity does. So you do something wrong, and that's where a lot of the fear comes from. But for me, the why is death is I think is a bigger question when it comes to the fear of things. Because I don't know. I mean, I understand entropy and everything, but why was it designed that way? Why is it that and what's its purpose? And what makes a person that's alive 1 minute dead? I mean, they put it down to a scientific heartbeat, brain activity,
Yes,
the
you could
the
chalk it
body
up to
lays, yeah,
biologicals, but
yeah,
there's
28
more to it.
grams lighter when a body dies, it loses 28 grams. What the hell is that? Like, it's a weird,
Hmm.
well, it's a weird thing. I think the unknown. I think if we knew, it would be absolutely disastrous. It's the one thing on the planet that we need to never know. If there is an answer to life after death or the meaning of death, we should never know that
I
because
absolutely agree. People would live their lives so much differently if we knew the answer. I don't know if that would be
Well,
for the better or worse, but it would be very, very different.
see, and that raises another question of if even atheists are afraid to die, then what do you believe happens afterwards? Do you think that there is something to be afraid of after death? Or do you
Well,
think it's just
I
a
I think
dissolving
for an
into the.
atheist, I mean, for an atheist, I would imagine
And I
it's
can't, I'm
only the
just going to
fear of
say that
nothing.
yeah, I can't speak for an atheist because I am not one, but I am just asking. A
I
lot of
used
them
to
are
guess
afraid
so.
of death. So you think it's a fear of nothing,
Yeah. As someone that
of
used to
not
be an
existing
atheist,
anymore?
yeah. It's really just like like a cycle. Everybody lives, they die, and then they return to the earth. It's because I mean, even in science, they show decomposing corpses and things like that. They release the gases and stuff that can help bring new nutrients to the soil and things like that. It but so from an atheist standpoint, I would imagine it'd be more of like oh, I'm just going to renew the earth with my body or something. That's how I used to look at it anyway.
Tree hugger.
Yeah.
And then you
Goodness.
turn into the grass, and then the buffaloes eat the grass, and that's the
That's
circle
right.
of
And the
life.
circle of life and all
Yep.
that jazz.
See, Dane Cook, I think, put it best when he interacted with a atheist on the subway, and they're like, "Nothing happens when you die. When I die, I'm going to come back as a tree." And Dane Cook was like, "Well, I'm going to be resurrected as a lumberjack and cut your ass down." And I always enjoyed that. Just saying. So when it comes to after death, like Grant, I don't know what your religious beliefs are or anything like that, but from my standpoint, um, my beliefs are very similar to there is no hell. Okay. And I am shaped by Christian belief system, but I don't hold to mainstream Christian beliefs. I am not held to a single type of church. But I do believe that God created us. But I believe after we die, we are given a second chance to take him in. And if we don't, we are erased from the book of life and forgotten forever.
Well, that's stated pretty clearly in the book of Revelations, isn't it?
Do you feel that that is something to be afraid of,
Um,
having never
see,
existed in the minds of anyone?
yes, but that's the point of it is there's trying to think of the quote. It's it's along those lines of not existing. Every person has two deaths. It's the first death is when you die, and the second death is when no one's alive to remember you. So that's essentially the same. That's essentially the same thing. It's a
Yep.
nice thought, but if you, I mean, it's not like you're going to be erased from existence. I that's the part that for me, I don't fear anything like that because I don't understand it.
Okay.
The concept like I've already lived my life, it's already happened. I'm going to be erased, so no one knows. Like the idea of that sort of power from a being is definitely um, like something that's more like malevolent type thing, and that is something to fear, sort of thing. So
So you'd be
uh,
more afraid of an actual hellscape than you would be not existing anymore because that's a simple lack of understanding of
well,
not
yeah,
being able to. Yeah.
it's a lack of understanding, and um, I mean, one of them is let's just call it essentially, if that's the case, the true death.
Hmm.
You know, that would be, so. There's nothing coming back. There's nothing of you, and if no one ever remembered you, does that mean that your deeds never happened? Yeah, it's a weird, but for me, that's a weird concept. It's not something that any of my beliefs have really dealt with. Um, it's either you stay dead and whatever dead is, or you move on um, to essentially your version of heaven or Valhalla or you know whatever that is. I don't,
Okay.
I don't necessarily fear that. Um, and I think the fear comes from essentially it's the fear of death is a giant FOMO, fear of missing out.
Yeah.
I think for most people's
That's
behalf.
a good way to put it.
Um, I don't want to miss out on what this sort of thing. I don't want people to miss out on me. Um, and I mean, there's Put it this way: if I was a steadfast person that feared death, didn't want to do anything, but I had a terminal illness, and it was killing me, and every day was a literal hell, I'd probably change my circumstance on that. Just to get that done. Nothingness is better than that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So, how much do you think uh, religious beliefs play into the fear of death? Not demonizing
um,
religion, but how much would you assume that they affect? Do you think it's a large effect on them, or
the fear of death, no. The ability to be at peace with death. I think everyone has a fear of death, and some people are able to rationalize it and put themselves in that first stage of grief. Denial. That no,
yeah,
it's everything's going to be fine. I don't have to worry about it. And if you're good enough at doing that, then you won't have a fear of death. If you have zero fear of death, then you have something wrong within yourself, because a person's most basic instinct is survival. It's something that's hard coded into us. The one thing that we want to do is survive.
yes,
Um, and having that taken away. Sorry, what was the question? I started rambling. What was that?
you're good. I was asking how much effect you think religious
That's right. Yeah.
beliefs have on the fear of death.
Well, see, most of my friends who are, like, I'd say, staunch atheists, agnostic, don't really believe in anything. They don't have a fear of death. Not saying that they don't want to die or anything like that. The idea of it. It's just like it's nothing. What can there's nothing I can do now at this time or anything. I can't. There's nothing. No one I can pray to, or I can do anything. When I die, it's done. So just don't think about it.
Yeah,
So, and then on the same thing, the same sort of peace that they have, my religious friends and family members have that with their religion. So I think it's somewhere in the middle. The people who don't know about life, that's where the fear comes from, and I think it's the unknown.
that actually makes a lot of sense. So the fear of the unknown drives them more. Do you think that people are more afraid of death itself or dying badly?
That's definitely one. Like, people always use the term, "Oh, good death." That would be a good death. I don't think there's a good death, because at the end of the day, dying is painful no matter how you do it. It's just whether you're conscious or aware enough. Because I don't know if you've ever had your heart skip a beat. It's painful. When your blood slows down, like, it's not a pleasant feeling. And when your nerves start misfiring, like pins and needles, when they're not getting enough blood, that can be painful. So death, the act of dying within itself, is not one of a peaceful one. There's quick ones that you don't feel, and uh, I mean, if there isn't an afterlife or anything, that's to me, that's the weirdest thing.
Yeah,
Legitimately, 1 second you're there, and next minute, a bullet's come past and killed
Well,
you
I mean,
essentially instantly, or you've been squashed between a thing, or a
yeah.
meteor's hit you, or an explosion. Like, there's all these things that, when they would happen, you, like, how would you know? People say, I'd rather be an old person dying in bed, but that's you're dying of pain when that happens.
well,
So
okay. So if you were to ask most people, what do you think they would say? Do you think they'd choose a slower death or a fast one? Because I think personally, for me, I would want it to be over as quickly as possible. Like, let's get this done, so I don't have to feel nothing about it. Let's just do it.
Well, I don't think anyone wants a long, excruciating death, but
I think
it's
I think I think you're right in that, but I think you're wrong with why they wouldn't pick that one. I think people will pick that one because the more time they have, even if it's the smaller chance of it getting better, even if they are terminal and they know, they want to take every second that they can to do it. And I've been in the bedside of people who have passed from cancers and various other things, and it's not a life, but it's all they have.
yeah,
And whether they were clinging it on because of their love of life or their fear of death, I don't know.
Yeah,
That's
and
something that
most
only
people will
they will
cling on to
know.
that. with every, yeah, you're right, absolutely right. Most people cling on to that with everything they have. Just one last chance to see my family, my friends, whoever or whatever is important to that particular person.
I mean,
So
I've seen that, and that still wasn't enough. They said, "Oh, I just want to be able to, see mum and the kids and all that,
Yeah.
one more time," sort of thing. They get their meds dead enough to give them, 1 or 2 good hours, and then the moment that it happens, it didn't make it any better. The fear's still
now,
there. They're just a little bit more at peace with it.
Vince Womack actually brought up something that I was going to get around to, but it's the difference between the fear of death and the fear of dying. Now, in your mind, which do you think is more prevalent? Fear of
Fear of
death or the
dying.
fear of dying?
The fear of
Fear of
dying.
dying.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and it's because of the unknown process, right?
Yeah,
That these people are afraid of actually dying. And it's not
yeah,
the death itself that they're afraid of. And most people can admit that. It'll be the fear of dying, the act thereof, that elicits the fear.
yeah. It's the death is just the full stop at the end of the sentence. Essentially,
Exactly.
like that's the way you look at it. Whether it's drawn at like, yeah. So death in itself as a concept is it is something that you can be afraid of basically because of the unknown. But I think the more that you know about it, the less that you fear it. But it needs the fear of death needs to be a powerful motivator because the fear of death is different to the fear of dying for me. I'm not going to put myself in a situation in the middle of the road on a highway and run towards a truck because I'm afraid of dying. I'm afraid of the act of dying, but it's the fear of the end of dying is death.
Yes.
So
And
I guess the way dying is the initiation process of death. Maybe, yeah. I've never really thought of it that way. That's why I like that distinction.
okay. So what about the fear of someone else dying?
Oh,
Like how
that's
do you think that's a huge motivator in modern day society?
well, I mean,
The
anyone who's
fear
ever
of
had a
someone
kid,
else dying. Well,
yeah,
yes, that is a
a
main
pet,
thing, but
yeah, like that's like any random person. No, someone that you care about. I mean, especially with your kid that you put above your own self. That the only person really on the planet that you would stave off that fear of death to protect. And I mean, that's a constant. I think that's with everyone and with anyone, like any one of your family members. I mean, I've got my grandparents are in their mid 80s, and that's a constant fear. My daughter's nearly 3. It's they're at either ends of the spectrums, and the fear at either end does not change. Um, but yeah,
and so when you look at the history of death basically in our world, it's been around for a while, right? And every culture that has existed, excuse me, has had a different concept of the importance of death. Some went as far as to have sacrifices. Um, is there a danger in not fearing death, do you think?
um, yeah, because I think if you don't fear it, you put yourself in a scenario where you're bound to like it's bound to happen. Like the old saying, like he who drives like hell is bound to get there.
I like
Um,
that saying. I've never heard that
yeah,
before.
yeah. So it's essentially like if you've got no fear at all um, of death in a single person, that's having a lack of affect, um, and that's a serious medical problem because you don't know not to put your hand on a hot stove. You know it burns, but there's no
Yeah,
uh,
there's no
instant.
reflex on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, as a society, like a society that didn't fear death, it's hard to know because I don't think we really have had one. Some people glorify death, the
Yeah.
idea of going into battle and dying was something that was considered, but that doesn't mean
The
that there wasn't a
Vikings,
fear to it.
samurai. Yeah.
because they all fight during that. They all fight to survive. They don't
Yeah.
fight. They don't just go out there to,
Yeah, they don't fight to
you know.
kill, they fight to survive.
Oh, well, you go. A society that didn't fear death is a society like Jonestown.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is a very good example, honestly, because they jumped headfirst into it. A lot of them were forced, I will admit that,
Yeah.
but they did jump headfirst into what they were doing, and if they would have had a bit more fear of death, there would have been a lot less than 800 people dying there. So
Then there's the thing, because it wasn't that they believed that what they were doing was going to kill them
this is
either.
true.
So that's
But
the
their
fine line.
leader
Like,
took the fear away from them
and
in
well, he
his own
replaced
twisted
it.
way.
Yeah, yeah.
He replaced it with hope,
Mm.
and that's
But then is that? I
that's a
mean, even though it
dangerous
is
thing in
still
that
death, but to
context.
them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay. I've got a question for you. Like perception of death versus death.
Okay.
How do you mix the two of those? Like as we we're talking about with the Jonestown situation, they were
Mm-hmm.
doing something that would kill them, though they didn't view that as a death. They viewed that as a way of transcendence. It wasn't that they were dying. They drink it. They're moving on. Nothing about them changes. They're still essentially the exact same person. Even though that's the act of dying, to them there was no death. Like, do you think that's
Well,
how within
that's
yourself do you change that?
the difference between the concept of death and the actual action of death. It happening, your consciousness leaving your body. And the concept of death, let me see if I can keep my brain rolling on the same track here. But the concept of death comes into it from a lot of different angles regarding moral relativism. It comes in from actual programmed beliefs through both conditioning and exposure. A person's concept of death is shaped by both their family and the society that they live in. Um, for instance, in Western society, we value life to the point that we do anything to save it. And, in the more that, and I use Western civilization, Western society as a broad term, developmentally speaking. So it all depends on where you're coming from on the concept of death. The actual act of death, like if your concept of death makes you comfortable with doing something like that, then that's a powerful concept of death. But the actual act of death still occurs because it causes their consciousness to no longer exist within their body. And as you said, there is something that makes the body slightly lighter when it leaves. And the only thing that physically leaves when we die is the consciousness. And some could argue that the consciousness would be a physical manifestation of the soul under certain religious contexts. But consciousness has to be something, whether it's biological, uh, bioelectric signals running through your brain, powered by, a hydroelectric pump in your chest, etc., etc. Whatever it is that actually causes your consciousness leaves your body. The physical act of dying actually happens. Death occurs. But the concept of death is what affects whether or not a person is more comfortable with it. And the concept of death in their mind, if they don't think they're dying, if they don't think they're going to actually occur in a full death, then that comes down to their concept, even though it's delusional, overpowering the reality that actual physical death happens.
Okay, so
I
I
don't
have a
know if
question
that made
for you,
any
right?
sense.
How much fear do you think there would be in a so for example, like ancient Mayan civilizations, they worshipped death, as human sacrifices for the sun god and all that kind of stuff. So I guess my question is, how much do you think a society like that would actually fear death?
I mean, to me, I think the fear's still there. They just come to terms with it because it's. I mean, I think it's innate in every living thing. When it's injured, it wants to get away. It wants to survive. And I think people, the moment that knife's coming down on these, the Mayans in their temple, they're just like, this was a mistake. You know.
Yeah.
Um,
Agreed.
the
So Go ahead.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I feel like I'm just repeating, talking in circles with it, um, but yeah, essentially that's how I feel about it. I think that it's just either the fear doesn't go away, it gets replaced, or ignored. I don't think the fear of death ever gets conquered because I feel like it's a biological imperative to survive.
Yes,
There's
it is.
switches and moments that you can do. People sacrifice themselves all the time, and they can rationalize it all the time. But that's just like a pendulum, and that's just swung to the extreme. Um, it's the same thing. People who are suicidal at 12:30 on one day that are ready to do it and are willing, that have no fear of doing it, but don't do it at 4 o'clock the next day, feel completely different.
Yep.
Um, you know, and that's what I think. I don't think you can ever conquer it. I think that you can for a moment push through and break through, um, but never actually, like, even willing, even because you're willing to do it and you do it, doesn't mean that there isn't a fear of doing that involved.
Yes. And see, my concept on societies that had more of an intimate relationship with death, such as the Mayans or certain Greek civilizations that like to sacrifice people and stuff like that, is that they took that fear and they channeled it into something else. In some societies, the fear of death manifested in the way you were going to die. I don't want to die badly, as we talked about earlier. And then in other societies, it manifests in I'm afraid of death to the point that I will use it to appease the gods or whatever the rationalization was at the time with someone else, like better them than me kind of fear of death. Because I don't know about you guys, but I wouldn't exactly jump in line to have my heart ripped out on a Mayan altar. You know,
Oh yeah,
not
absolutely
exactly a
not.
great
No.
time.
Yeah, it's definitely not on my top 10 things to do when
No,
visiting Argentina or something like that.
yeah, not on my bucket list.
So I guess that
Yeah, get the
brings up
worst Yelp review ever.
what happens when you have a society that's so fearful of death you're willing to hurt others to, try to stave it off. Like, that's not
I
very
mean,
good
but
end of the
that's
spectrum either.
I
no,
believe you
but
get
that's
into modern society.
yeah, that's gonna say that's literally where we are now. Like you're willing to do things for the idea. Like what we consider laws and everything is just a set of rules and structures that everyone agrees on to make sure that we don't die. And if someone breaks those laws and someone does something like that, we want them punished. So then other people will necessarily, oh, well, I don't want to do that because I don't want to die.
Right.
I don't want to be in a part of a thing like that. And a lot of people still have that concept of a karma. If I do good things, nothing bad's going to happen to me. So I'm not going to break a little, or I'm not going to do that because I don't want anything bad to come back to me. Because therefore, if any death or anything happens to me or loved one, it's on me in some way.
Right.
But yeah, modern control is based purely and simply on the fear of death. I'll go to war with you over an imaginary line which has nothing to do with that line. I just don't want people on this side of this said line to die.
Yep.
And I'm willing to make the people on your side of the line die so mine don't, because I'm afraid of what would happen to us, to me, to everyone if they died.
Yes.
Modern
I
society,
agree with
fear of
you.
death.
I
Modern
agree too. Yep.
society is a pinnacle of the fear of death. And that's one of the reasons that I chose this topic because not a lot of people are talking about it. And I don't think that we need to be as afraid of death as we are as a modern society. Regardless of your religious beliefs or regardless of your philosophical upbringings or any lack thereof, it's it's been hyped up. It's been hyped up like Zack Snyder's Justice League, and it's shitting just as bad. Okay?
Okay, so what you're saying, it's been hyped up rightfully so.
No, not at all. That movie was not as
But you
good as
just said
everybody
Zack
said it
Never
Snyder's.
was.
saw it.
Fine, it was hyped up like Anthem. Okay,
No
like
shit.
the fear of death
Don't
has
God,
remind
I
me.
love that game. Such a good game, isn't it?
no.
Okay, I haven't played it. I don't know.
Oh,
It's trash. It's a dumpster
yeah.
fire.
Let's just say you're not missing anything, but legitimately, like the fear of death has been hyped so much in modern society that it's everywhere you look, and it's even before the pandemic came out, we were seeing these kinds of things. And we're not getting political. I'm not going to go there. That's a Monday night thing. But it has been used to ramp it up a little bit on the fear of death, because now everyone's afraid of everything. Like, let's be real. They're afraid of physical contact with other people. They're afraid of
Well, doesn't that kind of go hand in hand
public
with
spaces. They're,
the advancements in society and how we live these days? I mean, we've made so much
Kind of,
technological
but-
and medicinal advantages that, you know.
Do you think that attributes? Do you think that contributed a lot to the fear of death control they have over us?
I'm sorry, repeat the question.
Do you think that the way we do it my brain broke. Do you think that that's a contributing factor to the modern fear of death?
More than likely. I mean,
Yeah.
but here you go. What about
Well, hold on.
What about trying to
Grant wanted to
replace-
say something. Hold on.
Oh,
Grant
Yeah, well, I
wanted
was
to
going
say
to say, like, yes, it contributes to it, but at the same time, we also seek out that fear. The fear of death without the actual potential of death. That's why things that are considered creepy. There's a danger to it, but we're safe. Like thrill rides and doing things that won't kill us, but will give us the closest feeling to death. Get you feeling more alive, because as they say, the closer you are to death, the more alive you feel.
Do you think that could
Um,
explain why we have so many people still wearing masks and like doing all of these things that are just seem kind of crazy to normal people these days?
Yeah, I mean, it very well could be, but I definitely think to what Corey was saying, like how it shapes society to the point, where we're so fearful of it, we seek out a lighter version of it to try and conquer it. You know, it's like, I want to drink soft drink. I don't want to drink Coke. I'll drink, diet, non-caffeine Coke sort of thing. It's not the same thing.
Right.
Yeah, or it's a new Coke, equivalent. I don't
Yeah,
know
so-
Coke flavors, so.
How much do you think the fear of death has played into modern consumerism? Because death is a big market.
Oh, yeah. I mean, not just in the market of death itself, with the funeral homes and everything like that.
Mhm.
We're talking secure. I mean, just let alone just in your country alone, based purely and simply on the amount of guns and prep food and all that sort of stuff, out of the fear of dying.
Well, even the
Um,
pharmaceutical industry. I mean, with the amount of medications and people
Perfect
take,
example.
Yep. That's what I was thinking of.
Mm.
Was the pharmaceutical industry a lot in modern consumerism, because we take supplements to stave off things that we've never even heard of. The doctors say, do this and you won't die as fast.
Well, I mean, I've never had scurvy, and I take my vitamins, so.
Well, I eat fruit, but I mean, whatever works. I mean, I understand in the land down under, you kind of stuck with like what, kiwis? Oh no, wait, that's New Zealand.
That's New Zealand. Yeah, good old.
What kind of
monkey
fruit do you
balls
guys even
everywhere.
have over there?
Oh, dude, they got all kinds of shit, dude. They're a modern civilization, bro. They got fruit of all kinds.
but
Dude, if I show him a picture of our roads, it's gonna blow his mind. They actually have gutters in them. Like, whoa.
Ooh,
We're-
bro. No, see, now I
I could have made a bad joke right there.
but he has the same kind of fruit we do, honey. Mm-hmm. But
Especially around February.
oh yeah.
That's our Pride Month.
Oh, okay, gotcha. We're just starting ours.
yeah.
But so do you think that the fear of death is higher in certain places than it is others currently? Say, do you think that it would be a higher fear of death in, say, Chicago than Sydney?
Well, I mean, statistically
Um,
speaking,
No, I think the fear of dying. Because if we make the distinction of the act of it happening, but not, I think the fear of death doesn't change where you are.
Okay.
Because everyone wants, as I said, everyone wants to survive, but the fear of dying, yeah, definitely. Because Because I don't know if you guys know this, but Chicago has a little bit of a murder problem.
A little bit. A little
Maybe
bit.
just a
Just a
little,
little
yeah. It's incy bitsy, you know.
I think it's only
Yeah,
up 3% over last year, which was only up 5% from the year before, which was only up 500% from the year before. So it's not really that bad.
Well, I mean,
Paradise, man. Paradise.
I'm assuming it must have a pretty good funneling in and out system. Like the population
Right.
doesn't really seem to be changing all that much.
Not really.
So, but yeah, like I mean, people like that don't necessarily fear death, but the act of dying, they still take preventative measures. Anyone
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
armed forces is the
I'm
same
sure
thing. They don't
like,
necessarily fear death, but they fear the dying.
someone living out in, you know,
I
the
feel like I've
country
changed
of
my
the
mind 5
Midwest.
times in discussing it. I was definitely certain on the first one, and then 20 minutes into it, I'm like, nah, you're probably right. Now I'm back, no, no, I don't know. That's why I like these talks.
Yeah, me too. That's why I like allowing people to take the conversation where they want to take it.
Well, and I
That's
mean,
the whole point.
the fear of dying would be even more quantifiable. I mean, like you're living in rural Midwest America, you know, your actual fear of dying probably isn't as bad as someone say in Somalia. You know, you live with an absolute fear of dying every single day.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
so
If you go to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, you'll have a good fear of dying out there.
oh yeah,
But
yeah.
Ain't impossible. It has Democrat in its name.
not
political.
Yeah. Yeah.
It also has Republic. That was the joke.
Yeah, I know.
Both.
It's anyway. So when it comes down to it, Grant, would you say that you fear death?
No, but dying definitely.
Fair distinction. Good.
After talking about it now, no, I can pretty much say that I don't necessarily fear death.
Mhm.
Because death is just the thing that happens at the end of dying. It's the full stop, and a sentence can't run on forever.
Exactly. Thank you. That's a wonderful summation of it. So, Jeremy, I would like to pick your brain on that for a second.
Okay.
Do you fear death in that context?
I'm in kind of the same boat that Mr. Grant is. I don't necessarily have a fear of death, but the fear of the act of dying, yes, very much so. You know, I mean, partially human nature, and then partially the unknown. You know, and also what we discussed earlier, partially, you know, what's going to happen to my family when I'm gone. You know, so I
Yeah.
think it's more the actual act of dying that I fear than death itself, because death is inevitable for every one of us. And you
Yeah.
never know when it's going to happen or how it's going to happen. And accepting that, I think, alleviates some of that stress that the fear can cause, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. That's great. I myself would say I partially share your sentiments. I in no way, shape, or form fear death like you guys, but as far as dying, I think I've come to terms with that too, honestly, because there's only so much you can do in this life, and you have absolutely no control over when it actually stops. So, if at any time the unexpected can overtake you and you can just leave this plane of existence behind, I don't feel like it's actually something worth fearing. Even the act thereof dying, even in a violent manner, even slowly at old age, I don't feel like it's something that should be feared. I understand that it's not something that's easily left behind. I will put that out there. It's easier said than done to not be afraid of dying, to not be afraid of death, but it is possible to overcome both. It's just a matter of putting yourself in the right state of mind, because you don't have to abandon hope for life and put yourself in dangerous situations over the fear of dying. But occasionally, the fear of dying does hold you back from having some great experiences. And the fear of death is nothing that you should ever have. It's the fear of dying is a rational fear, but when it comes down to it, it's not something that should control your life. And there's a lot of people out there who have an anxiety about, if I even go out into public, I might die. And honestly, if you know somebody like that, where they're, a little bit afraid of dying or death, then please, anyone at home, anyone on the panel, anyone in the chat, watching on replay, share it with your friends, see if they like this conversation. But we're in the last 15 minutes, so I think it's time to wind down from that fun discussion. Thank you guys. I had a great time talking about that. So,
Yeah, I wonder what the chat. If I could ask the chat a question.
yeah, absolutely.
People in the chat, do you have a fear of death or dying? Just let us know. With like a yes, death, or yes, dying, or no for neither. I think that'd be an
Yeah.
interesting thing to see. The baseline of the chat in comparison, because we've had, with just three of us here, we've had differing opinions and differing thoughts on it. So, you know, it'd be interesting
So,
to
Snail
see what they say.
Messiah
Yeah.
says, death, no, dying, yes. Which, again, is a fair and logical thing, honestly. It is. It's totally understandable to fear the actual process of dying.
Yeah.
It's understandable.
Yeah, because you can't I mean, you can be concerned about what happens after the actual death, but there's nothing that you can do. So the idea of fearing it and preventing that, because you're never going. That's the thing, because you're never going to prevent it.
Right.
It's the one harsh thing that everyone who's ever born dies.
Yep.
Unless there's someone out there that it hasn't happened to yet, that's all we can say. It just hasn't happened yet.
Right.
And then if that's the case, as I said at the beginning, that to me is the most terrifying thing existing.
So, Vince Womack says, death, no, dying, maybe. It depends. So, again, they're sharing our sentiments so far. No Green Rock says, no, it's the way of my death and how my body will be treated after that I think about. And that's very common for a lot of people, especially depending on religious beliefs or what you feel should be done with your body afterwards and stuff like that. So that is another part of dying and death that can be discussed at another time for sure. Yeah. So Snail Messiah says, I can't worry about life after life. I can worry about staying healthy so I don't die a dumb death from being really unhealthy. Yes, exactly. Get a balanced diet, exercise regularly. We know it sucks, but it's good for you. Parents were right.
Yeah, I know they were, and I don't like saying that.
I don't.
So I just sit here and drink my my spinach smoothies, and they are absolutely delicious.
Gross.
Yeah. Hey, dude, drink that spinach, grow that mustache.
Yeah,
Because
well,
I
It's like
need all
his
the
version
help.
of Popeye.
Yeah, it is. Except I spilt it down my shirt. Now I've got a hairy chest like Culture. So
Yeah. Well,
that's not true.
just don't wax it. We learned that from movies. Don't, like, 40-year-old virgin taught us, don't wax your chest hair.
Yeah, I tend to stay away from anything that's going to give me extra hair growth because I already look like the goddamn wolf man. So.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Oh
Yeah.
wait, so that's not your actual picture? Oh, okay.
Oh, no.
That's when I shaved. I shaved when I took that picture. So
Yeah, that's the mental image he has of himself.
hey, if you got a gut, you got a strut.
If you got a gut, you got a strut. Wow, bro. Wow. So it looks like that was all the chat was going to weigh in on whether they fear dying or not. Real quick, I'm going to say hi to a few other people that popped in while we were talking. First of all, Riding with Charlie, good to see you, sir. The Snail Messiah did pop in while we were chatting, and I did not say hello to you, but hello. And then there's Sean Landrigan. He's an amazing standard, like, regular viewer. Not standard. He's not standard. He's exceptional, but he's a regular viewer of mine. Then we have Vertical Horizons. I believe, yeah, you've been around a few times before. That's fantastic. Thank you. Welcome back. The News Lad, hail. And was that everybody that snuck in? Oh, maybe. I said hi to Lasso of Truth, but hi, Trina.
Yeah,
So
I don't
Sean
think you actually
Landrigan.
did. Actually, I don't think you ever did say hi to Lasso.
Didn't I? Hi, Trina. Hi, Trina. President of my fan club. I'm such a terrible person. So sorry. Anyway,
What the
Sean
fuck?
Landrigan says, I feel the same as Vince. Like, I'm afraid of drowning. That would suck, but I'm not scared of death. Yes, my top 2 least favorite ways to die is drowning and burning. And the reason burning is second is because most of the time when you catch fire, you drown anyway. Just because you
Because
breathe
your
in the
lungs
fire and
boil.
the
Yep.
pleurisy. Yay.
Not many people know this, but if you get burnt, that's really hot, so it doesn't
Yes,
feel
it
nice.
is.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel good at all. Like, I remember one time I got
Only slightly
burned
worse than
and it
a bad
hurt.
sunburn.
It was stupid. Oh, only a little bit. Only
Right.
fire's only a little hot, bro. Only a little. So
No, I really
so
enjoyed this conversation. I've been watching
yeah,
a lot
this
of the
was.
X-Files, and they've got some
Oh
good.
yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, the X-Files has a lot of good moral things, involved with their science fiction and all that. So,
Well, so
Yes, like if you smoke a lot, you'll one day find aliens.
yeah.
That's the story of the smoking
hell
man,
yeah,
right? I can't remember.
dude.
Well, we were just talking
Cancer will
about burning to
attract them.
death, and I watched one
Yeah.
today that was a pyrokinetic guy that lit his cigarettes.
Pyrokinesis,
Yeah,
dude. I need to write that down as a topic for a future episode. Psychic abilities.
pyrokinesis.
Psychic abilities,
Oh, okay.
because that would be a
So
fun thing.
telekinesis, pyrokinesis, any of the kineses. You don't
let's
hear
put
much
the-
about aquakinesis much, because no one wants to go
That would
around
be
having really like
sick.
sloppy hands.
Right, that would kind of suck.
Or end
Like,
up like
what?
Yeah.
Aquaman.
Are
you
you
know?
nervous or something?
Yeah.
God.
No, I'm just using my power.
Did that Old Spice Dolph Lundgren commercial where he's just dripping sweat down onto the other
Right.
guy?
Oh my gosh. But Grant, it was fantastic having you on, sir. We're gonna go ahead and just close out the show. So you guys go ahead and pitch your stuff.
Well, we can just go ahead and skip me. I'm not on here very much anymore. I will pretty much only be on this stream on Wednesdays with Corey.
All right.
I'm working a lot, so making money.
Got himself
Being
a
a
nice
single
job. Yep.
dad.
Life.
Yep, that's it.
Exactly.
Mr. Grant Gregory.
Well, you can catch me on Yelling at Parkhouse on Monday with this lovely gentleman over here. And I do the Monday show with Scott called Spork Deep. I think this week's show is a members only, so that'll be appearing the week after next. Then I've got the Wednesday dump with Sporking News, and then we have, which is now going to be called the Mads dump. Mad Mardigan's taking over that one, so that should be pretty fun. We have the Saturday dump, which is the All-Star one, which has everyone editing all Culture's videos on his main channel. He's got his DIY one, which I don't have anything to do with because I'm not very DIY-y. DIY-y? That doesn't sound right. It sounded better in my head. I get other people to do the things, and then I give them the money to do the things. So
Yep. Well,
Pretty sure that's how
usually
the
the
economy
best way to go.
works.
yeah, any sort of live stream that I can get in on, or wonderful shows like this. So, yeah, next time I'm on, maybe I'll pick a subject that I'm a little more knowledgeable on with certain things. But this one just because it's like I don't really know a lot about this, but it's something that one fascinates me, and also fear. Even talking about the fear of death had a bit of fear behind me even picking it. So,
Yeah.
I thought, hey, do one thing every day that makes you feel uncomfortable or scared. So
It
I picked
makes
that
you
one.
grow as a person. So
Absolutely,
there
yeah.
you go. And yeah, thank you everyone at home and everyone watching on the replay for joining us tonight. It was a fantastic discussion, and we had some great minds sharing some great viewpoints, in my opinion. And make sure you catch tomorrow here on Sir Talks a Lot. I'll be doing a Corey's Quick Reviews on the Rise of Skywalker. And then I will be doing a release of Trolling as Usual, my brand new song on Friday. You could call it a sequel to all that bullshit that I released on the Corey Music channel. And I will, of course, be... Oh, no, next week. Yeah, that's right. Son of a bitch. Next week, I will not be available for any nighttime streams. So I will not be on Monday, I will not be on Wednesday, and I will not be on Thursday. But that's because life happens, and there's a big event at the church where I work, and my wife can't handle it alone, so I won't make her. I'm going to go help her out, and it's going to be fantastic. And then the following week, let's get a look at that date, the 15th. Our next guest on Dark Philosophy will be the Supreme Heretic himself, Drew, and we will have 3 new topics for him to choose from, and it should be a fantastic discussion. I hope everyone comes. It's going to be a fantastic fucking time. So I think that's the first time I said fucking this whole stream.
Oh man.
Oh well.
Or is that a good
Maybe
thing? I
next
don't
time.
know. Yeah.
I was about
Anyway.
to pull that Cartman thing from Bigger, Longer, and Uncut.
Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I think this is going to be our outro for the night. As always, thank you for watching, and stay sexy, and don't get murdered.
Friends, I have killed one of God's most innocent and intelligent creatures. And I liked it.